Hey, Michael.
Hey, Jeremy.
So I was talking to somebody the other day.
That's a promising beginning.
Yeah. And the conversation was about condition in collecting. And I know you've had this conversation.
Just a random person? Like you're shopping for cereal and you start talking about condition?
Oh, no. A book collector.
Okay, that makes it a little more specific.
Yeah. People ask those questions, right? You're starting a collection, all the rest of it.
It may be, that's in my top 3 most asked questions, yeah. I think, right?
So this conversation is about condition. And, there's quirks, I think is fair to say. There are quirks in the way that booksellers describe the condition of books. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair, yeah. I need some specifics, but
okay.
It passes the smell test.
Okay, so the copy is fine, that means it's great. If the copy is good, that means it's terrible. That's not intuitive, right?
No, hold on.
Okay,
neither of those make sense in the world proper. Wait,
that's
what's
what
this person?
I'm saying that. No, okay, so I'm saying a quirk of.
Okay, I definitely agree. Now I get
our
it.
world. A quirk of our world is that if you say the copy's fine, you can't do better. But if said to somebody like, "How was dinner?" It was fine. Then it might not
could be better, but it's fine.
Yeah, but if you say a book is the condition of a book is good, that's.
But get back to the fine for a book. Oh, it's fine. Now, how do you say it? How do you say it to emphasize differently?
I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. And fine is a superlative in terms of condition for books.
That is weird,
right? Okay, so that's just weird words that we use, and not in non-intuitive
normal
ways.
Words.
Well, there's an element of what do you want to call it? Chicanery going on.
You said it, not me.
Well, because a novice might look at the
describe yourself that way.
Well, I know. I didn't. This is a tradition that I find myself in. I am not the the prime mover in this at all, in any way. But no, a novice might look at the description and say, "Oh, it's a good copy," and they think, "Oh, I'll definitely have that." And it's half the price for some reason. For some reason, this good copy is half the price. This other copy that's a fine copy is, what's the difference between good and fine? There's no difference. I'd rather save the money, right?
Actually, that's an excellent point, because that isn't a mistake someone can easily make when they're starting out. Easily.
Yeah, sure. But there's more. Okay. So this conversation's going on, and I'm trying to think, what's the simplest way to describe what condition is about in book collecting?
Ooh, right. That's intriguing.
And I think I have it, and I'm going to offer it to you and see what you think.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah, because then you help me decide if this is the way forward, if there are any future conversations. But I think it is. I think the key to condition is that condition tells a story about the book as an object through time. Okay?
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And collectors pay more for books that have been on one kind of trajectory through time versus books and objects that have been on a different kind of trajectory through time.
Wait, they pay more for an unloved book, unloved, unread.
That's the case. That's often the case. The book that sat there untouched for a few centuries and emerges in pristine condition, the original board's intact, nobody bothered to bind it because they weren't there.
That copy may not have influenced anyone.
Yeah.
Because no one cared about it.
Right. That's the copy the collector wants. So
topsy-turvy.
Okay. So this is but then there are other dimensions to this as you think about it, right? Because there's certain kinds of condition flaws, and I know you're going to agree with me because we've talked about this. There's certain kinds of condition flaws that are more bothersome than others.
I totally agree with you.
Okay,
totally.
So,
it is something I think about all the time. And and I think about that, and I wonder if that's personal, like my reaction, or is my reaction indicative of a universal? Because when you price something, you're thinking, is that just me?
Yeah.
Does this bother me?
What's your number one can't have for condition? I know what you're going to. I know exactly what you're going to say. I've set you up.
There's one that comes to mind. You did set me up, but I was thinking, is it really true?
It is true.
All right, I'll just say it because I think it is true. Damp staining.
Yeah, damp staining.
Yeah,
it's the worst.
It's the worst.
Okay, why is it the worst?
Because the damp staining, we only call, damp stain never passes spell check when you type it in somewhere. That's not a real word.
Okay.
No, seriously, it's a bookseller's word. So what is damp staining?
Well, I see some, and you see this in the British description sometimes, they'll just refer to it as damp.
Oh, well, that's a word.
Yeah. Anyway,
staining is a word too.
What is it about damp staining?
Well, so damp staining is evidence of liquid absorbed by the paper.
Yeah.
And it usually goes through many pages. That's what kills you too.
Yeah.
It's like not a little spill on one page. It just seeped through. And you just, there's no way around it. You just start asking yourself, what caused this? Is it water? Or is it something else?
And the other possibilities are not
good.
Yeah. Okay, so why is damp staining worse than foxing? Because this is going to make the point that I
You're putting me on the spot here, but foxing is a natural
This
process.
is the Socratic method, That's what we're doing.
You're not Socrates. No,
no, I know, but that's what it is.
I didn't expect the Inquisition. So
no, you're just talking about books, Michael. That's all.
All right. So foxing, is chemical reaction of the paper to time, age, conditions.
Yeah.
So that's emanating from the paper, not an external. That's not true. I mean, foxing can be caused a bit by poor storage, but it's. I'm going to blame the paper on this one in general.
Right. So it's kind of baked in from the beginning, and it's part of the.
Because there are certain books always get foxed.
Yeah, exactly.
You're blaming the paper on that.
Moby Dick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So actually, sometimes these are books that are always foxed. When you see one not foxed, you're like that just doesn't look right.
Yeah, and sometimes the poor condition of paper can be part of a story that amplifies interest. So, for example, you have like Orwell's books during wartime; they're always on, paper's poor quality. The dust jackets are really thin, and the spines are often faded of the book of of 1984, let's say, even if the dust jacket's been on it.
We always circle back to that book, don't we?
I know, it's a good book. Anyway, comparing that, you have damp staining on the one hand and foxing on the other. And the problem is with damp staining, the story includes an act of negligence and disregard.
Savagery.
Yes. And so now you are looking at a book that somebody treated poorly, and you don't want that book in your collection. If you can have, I'd prefer a copy, 2 copies. I'd rather have the fox copy than the damp stain copy.
I feel bad for that book, though. It's not the book's fault.
Exactly. It's victim blaming. That's exactly. So
it is victim blaming.
Right?
You know why I feel sad? Do you know what's sad? When there's a coffee ring. Someone put their coffee mug on a dust jacket or a book.
Yeah.
And you see that. Sometimes it's a book in boards, and you see the ring of coffee. And that coffee ring could be hundreds of years old. But I'm thinking somebody had such disdain for this book that they put their coffee or tea or whatever.
Have you never put a cup of coffee on a book?
I did this morning. But the book, in fairness, it was a reference book, and the book had Mylar on it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm a hypocrite.
No, I have too. Because actually now that I have to rethink, because
I literally did that this morning.
It's only in retrospect that this book becomes historically important, that the edition becomes important, because it may be that
you're right. I'm too critical of the past.
I know, it's dizzying. How do you get out of this stuff? You start thinking about how do you ever stop?
I feel a little too judgy now.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
I'm glad I said it too, but I'm not sure why.
Okay, here's why. Because when you think about the language of condition, are you laughing at your own joke?
No.
You are. All right. I'm glad you said it, though. I'm glad you said it, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. But so judgy, right? The language of condition, it has a moral dimension, because, like, think about the term an unsophisticated copy, right? And that's okay, versus a sophisticated copy.
Oh.
Okay,
that is really good. Because if you're a sophisticated person, that's generally meant as a compliment, right? Hey,
right.
Person's quite sophisticated. They know a lot of things.
Right.
But books.
If it's a sophisticated copy, then it means that somebody has gussied it up, and again, this is victim blaming, okay? Because books don't gussy themselves up, right?
Wait, both of those are euphemisms. Both of them, when you think about it. Like unsophisticated. What does that mean? Unsophisticated people are more honest?
I think that is what it means.
So
that's the implication.
But you're also indicating that there are serious problems that you're backhandedly apologizing for. So the boards are kind of fallen off, but nothing's been done to it. So it's unsophisticated, which is a good thing because it's honest. But it could be a wreck, right?
I think what we're discovering here is that people talk about books in very like judgmental and objectifying ways, and they are.
That is appropriate. I hate to break it to you.
No, but the judgments are interesting though, because the sophisticated copy, you resist it because you feel that someone is trying to pull a fast one.
I never use that term.
No, I know, but people do, and you know what it means. And what it means is somebody has gussied it up, and it's not another term.
Restored. It's been restored.
Well, or it could be worse. You could have leaves.
Oh, that's true.
Swapped out.
You're right.
It's the title page from this, and you see this with Shakespeare folios all the time, especially from done around 1900. The Revere bindery was up to some good
hijinks.
But yeah, so the sophisticated copy it has something about it that feels dishonest, right? Or control. I don't know, gussied up. But then if you have an honest copy, it's an honest copy. It may have flaws, but the flaws are
right there in front of you.
Yes. So think about all this language. Like,
okay, which would you rather have?
I'd rather have the honest copy.
Well, everybody's going to say that if you call it an honest copy.
Well, it depends what it looks like. Another thing I've noticed.
It does depend what it looks like, because I was going to answer that way too. What if it's really falling apart?
Another thing that I've noticed is that if you go further back in time, the condition descriptions tend to be very perfunctory. I mean, you look at some of the catalogs from Rosenbach, it barely says anything, and if you go back further into the 19th century, the condition description is usually very, very perfunctory.
You know what's ironic about that? Because they weren't showing pictures.
Exactly.
You really don't need good condition descriptions now if you give a lot of pictures.
Right.
But back then, you're right. You're looking at an unillustrated catalog.
Yeah. Now, as I was thinking about this, I was wondering, is that because most books then, somebody would come in and look at it in person and you go through it? But no, I mean, the people would be ordering books and whatever. It'd be.
I have no idea. Maybe they'd call and talk about it. I don't know. Although if you're going back farther with no phone, I don't know.
Go back to 19th century catalogs.
I didn't realize that. I didn't. Yeah. That's a good observation. Let me frame what you're saying here. I think just flat out, you're saying this is confusing stuff, and you need some guidance. Or are you saying that we need a rehauling of what we're doing?
Oh, forget about the rehauling. That's not going to happen. Oh. I think the guidance, the storytelling framework is a simple way to navigate towards more complicated questions. But so the story, the conditioned story of a book could be one of negligence in the case of damp staining. It could be one of borderline fraudulence in the case, or even fraudulence, people swapping out title pages, or stuff like that. I won't elaborate. Or one could just be a simple, the story is that the book was made poorly, is made with poor materials and therefore has aged poorly. Or it could be that, look, this paper from the 18th century is stunning. It's better than paper.
What if it's damaged because something awesome happened to it? Like, what if it was the book that was on Shelley when he drowned, and now it's waterlogged with damp staining?
There you go.
Well, that's awesome.
See, that's okay. That's a good point. So that in that case, the damp staining amplifies. Like you don't see copies of the third folio, pretty much, because of the fire of London. But what if it had been a flood?
Oh, there's a little bit of charredness to the. No, that doesn't work.
You wouldn't.
Remember, several years ago, we were looking at a manuscript that was in Antarctica. It was a log.
Oh God, yeah. It was terrible shit.
It was someone from Shackleton's crew. I forgot. But the point was, we read the description and said, that's amazing. And I went preparing to think it was bad because it was part of the story.
Yeah.
And I was all excited. I went to look at it in person, and it was really bad. I'm like, in condition-wise, but I'm like, it's okay. This has been through a lot. This was like, the fact that this survived, this is part of the story. I'm willing to accept that, right?
Mm.
Then I pressed a little harder about the condition. It got damaged in the 1960s in a flood in the warehouse where it was stored.
Forget it.
Yeah. So nothing has changed with the object I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I lost interest entirely. And what does that say about that? That's actually really makes sense because the object didn't change.
And it also...
I instantly I lost interest. I mean, literally, I put it down. I was like, it's not for me then. But am I the crazy one here?
Well, if I remember correctly, it was a fair bit of money that it was going to be.
Yes, but it was. I wouldn't take it almost at anything at that point.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, very unfortunate because I remember the content of the diary was like stunning, fantastic material. And so the author of the diary, I wish one of us could remember who it was. I know
it's actually not that relevant. The point was it should have been something rugged and ragged.
And so the thing too is that sometimes, these things surface that cause you to reconsider major events. You sometimes materials surface that make you realize that there was this unacknowledged person who made really significant and sometimes great contributions to major historical events. So that like the emergence of these materials is not of minor interest. Sometimes it's an entire person's life and their achievements and accomplishments is at stake.
Yeah, to go back to this diary, I'm using this diary as an example of something, right?
Yeah.
So the content of this diary, from what I recall, like it may never have been studied. It will be lost.
That's what I'm saying. That's kind of my
lost.
point.
Right. So I'm being a shallow bookseller in judging it superficially, but a scholar shouldn't. Like I'm actually wrong judging it that way.
You're not wrong. I mean, you're running a business. You're not.
I know, but I can't. I couldn't talk around that because emotionally I wasn't feeling it. But that's kind of irrational too.
There's no viable path forward in the book world by being rational.
Whoa,
I mean, it's just not.
Think about.
It's just not. It's like,
there's no viable path forward in the book world by being rational.
No, because then you divorce yourself from the passions, and like the natural responses of excitement or
romance,
intoxication that it can come over you when you just in the presence of something amazing, or if just maybe you've had too much to drink too.
Yeah, I know the intoxication word could be a little bit loaded.
Yeah, loaded. But you know what I mean? I mean, you're not in this world.
I do know what you mean. There's an element of love.
Yeah, and passion. Back to the conversation that set this conversation in motion. Condition is perplexing, and there is no hard and fast rule. I mean, sometimes you have a book that you want to be in bad condition because it was used. Like, it's the map that Washington had in his pocket while he was crossing the Delaware, you'd want that damn thing.
Okay. So sometimes you want it damaged, but it better have a good story, and it can't be even too damaged.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's just, I think the point is the conversation about condition could go on forever, and you can always find examples and counterexamples and variations and.
Okay, so can I frame it again now that I'm understanding you a little better? You are saying that condition tells the story of the book, and if it's a flattering story, that's good. If it's a story of neglect and violence against the book, that's not good.
Yeah,
and that's part of the romance of the book.
Yeah, and so or an association copy, a book that moved in the right circles, so to say.
Right. So the journal that we were talking about, that was neglect in the warehouse, rather than, oh my gosh, I'm dragging this through snow.
Yeah, and the other problem with that sort of damage is it's by some random person who put it in a warehouse and didn't take care of it. So now there's like this person in the story of no consequence except that they did this bad deed. They failed to take care of this book or this diary.
So you're blaming the victim then?
Well, no. Now the story is just jumbled. It's like, there was this original diary.
Not to keep going back to this, but I was actually shocked at my immediate reaction when I was told that the water stains were from a warehouse. It was immediate.
Yeah.
You're right, we bypass thoughts.
And sometimes, you sometimes handle journals or archives where things are in not great shape, but it's evidence of the haste with which they were working, or the fact that these were just everyday objects, and that was part of their daily world, and it didn't have no reason to take especially good care of them, and then you kind of think, okay, that's okay, I can live with that.
I have a secret to tell you.
Oh boy,
I don't love the signed limited editions of books.
Oh no, they do nothing for me.
Oh, I didn't know you knew that. I didn't know you agreed with me on this, because they're often in fine condition because someone bought it as a collectible.
You get elaborate descriptions of the condition of the slipcase, whether or not. I mean, we're talking about a piece of cardboard here.
My favorite things we've discovered the importance years later. So the creator didn't realize how important it was going to be.
Right.
I think, right. So when you do the sign limited, you're saying this is important. You're going to take care of this from the get-go.
Yeah.
So the story is not, there is no romance there. But when you have a copy inscribed to somebody important, that's different. That's personal. That's all that sort of thing. I mean, the market does agree with me. This is not a crazy take.
But then a related question is like the importance of editions. I mean, we were talking about a copy of The Stranger inscribed by Camus that just came up at Bonham.
I wanted that.
I know you did. And it wasn't the first edition.
No. And normally I would just dismiss it. But there are vanishingly few numbers of actually signed first edition because Camus wasn't around when the book was published. So he was not even nearby. It's almost a miracle if he signed a first edition, or it would have to be later. Right. So there you can spend your lifetime trying to find one and you may not.
Yeah.
So this is a later printing inscribed. It was inscribed to somebody interesting. And I thought, well, if I collect Camus, and I want an inscribed Stranger, that's what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Right? That's cool.
Yeah.
So that works because I think that's the best I'm going to get. So but I didn't get it. It went too high anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things I really want, that's what happens. I don't get them. But that doesn't make sense. If I really want it, you would think I'd,
the more you want, but other people want it too.
But anyway, so that, but you have to know that to appreciate the fact that that's a later printing inscribed, but that's still awesome.
Yeah, but then why can't you apply the same logic to other books with great inscriptions, later printings, and, just think, okay.
No, you should.
You should. That's what I'm saying. But you don't.
No, I don't.
That's what I'm saying. There's no rational path forward in this world of book collecting.
You've solved nothing.
I know. That's kind of the other point. But there's so many contradictions embedded in how we evaluate and discuss condition. I'm just trying to find one simple framework. And for me, I think the idea that we respond to the condition of a book or a manuscript, whatever it is, not purely in terms of its physical attributes, but in terms of what is the condition telling us about this book, manuscript, letter, whatever, its passage through time, and what is its arc.
And then it's up to you to see if you're comfortable with that story.
Yeah. But and a lot of times the pricing will reflect how other people feel about some stories are more tolerable.
Is that your theory of everything?
No, it's just about condition.
Well, it seems to encompass a lot.
Theory of everything is like, I'm not even started on that one yet.
Please don't.
No, I don't know. No, but it's weird, isn't it? The condition, just all these different terms. And
no, in all seriousness, I do like that framing. And actually that can help. You know what? I think you've taught me something today.
Seriously?
I do. I like this.
Hit me up on Venmo. How much is it worth to you?
Thank you, my thoughts. But I do like this idea. I do like the storytelling idea. I like it.